You are listening to the Cattle Call podcast. This is the place where computer-aided design and drafting meets humor and practicality, with a touch of business acumen thrown in for fun. Jim and Rocco, the owners of Zentech Consultants, the premier U.S. technology consulting firm for architecture, engineering, construction, and manufacturing, discuss the fascinating world of CAD with some humor and some honesty. The Cattle Call podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cattle Call podcast with Jim and Rocco from Zentech Consultants. I am your host, Jim Coppinger, and with me, as always, is my partner in business, partner in crime, partner in fun, Mr.
Rocco Bricsys.
Well, I guess that was somewhat fun.
As long as you don't consider me partner in murder.
We said we were never going to talk about that, Rocco. Certainly not when we're recording. What's wrong with you, man? Can't trust you for nothing. See? And since I can't trust you, that's why I invited a special guest in here today to help us talk about our topic, which is going to be scan to BIM. Is it a dream or a reality? So, talking about that process today, we have invited in Julie Keverian. I somehow have the hardest time, Julie, with your last name. I don't know.
I know it's not easy, but you got it right.
Oh, yeah, I did something right today. I can go home now. So, all right. So, Julie, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for the invite.
We're always thrilled to have you back here. So, like I said, we're talking about the scan to BIM process today, right? Which definitely requires bigger brains than either Rocco or I have, that's for sure. And that's why we've invited Julie. Julie's from Bricsys, and she's been on the program before, and she's back to, despite having to interact on a regular basis with both me and Rocco. And she just keeps on agreeing to talk to us anyway. So we're grateful for that. So Julie, you are from Bricsys, and over there you are a customer success specialist. Why don't you tell everybody what that actually is, and how do you get to be one?
Sure. So my focus is helping our BricsCAD customers, starting with delivering technical presentations and answering questions before someone actually makes a purchase. I also help out partners like you at Zentech. So it's basically just to help our customers. And myself and the other customer success specialists, we all have a deep knowledge of CAD programs, of Bricsys, of industries that we're working in. So personally, I've worked for several different technology companies, large and small, but all in the AEC industry.
Okay. That's not bad at all. See, so that means you're generally a nice person. Unlike me. At least that's what Rocco tells me. Tells me I have to be nicer to him, apparently. All right. So like I said, today we're going to be discussing the scan to BIM process and whether it's a viable reality or just some crazy pipe dream that we may never see, kind of like the paperless office we've been waiting for 40 years. The idea, as I can understand it with my limited brain power, it's about being able to scan existing sites or existing structures and convert that data, the point cloud data from that into solid modeled 3D, right, with the appropriate BIM data attached. And honestly, that seems like a really tall order. All right, so before we even get into it, let's be sure that I'm at least on the right track before we get too far into this conversation. So, Julie, am I even close in my limited understanding? Woo! Okay, so why don't you tell us exactly what does scan to BIM, what does that phrase actually mean?
So the short answer is that it's pretty much what you described. You're starting with a laser scanner. You're scanning the environment, whether it's an existing building, whether it's a site, and you're trying to get the real world conditions of that project. So then that scan data is imported into the modeling environment, like in BricsCAD, where we can use that point cloud data to create as-builts that are accurate, or floor plans, or just to kind of get the real world conditions. It might be a site. So we can take that site model and now start to see how a building could go on that site.
Okay. That makes sense. And I see, you're talking about as-built, right? So we're not just talking like a one and done thing. This could be an ongoing process throughout the construction life cycle.
Right. And even the building cycle, once you move in, you've got your as-builts. As you continue to use the building. It might change, especially now with all COVID. Everybody's reconfiguring offices.
Right.
So you're going to, maybe need a scan to see the as-built, and then you're going to make changes. And then as that construction process goes on, you can monitor the construction process and compare that to the model that was created in Bricsys.
Right. Yeah. So it gives you kind of a really nice, facilities management tool moving forward as well. So it's a great concept. I have to imagine, though, that there are a number of pretty involved technologies that are going to have to interact in a reasonable way for this type of work, right? So I'm thinking, scanners and point cloud converters and modeling systems and BIM data tools to apply the correct LOD, right, level of development,
right.
And probably a bunch more that I'm not even thinking of, right? This process has really been sort of the holy grail of the design world for a lot of years now, so I it can't be just a simple 1, 2, 3 thing, or we'd all just be using it by this point, right? So Julie, then what are the actual steps to getting a scan to BIM project completed, kind of from start to finish?
Well, the good news is it is getting simpler, and Bricsys and BricsCAD helps a lot with that. But first of all, of course, we have to collect that data, and that's going to start with a scanner. So the scanner is going to go in and go into each, if it's a building that already exists, go into each room and scan each room as well as the outside. So they have to collect all of the scan data. Then that data from the scanner has to be offloaded from the scanner. Usually the scanners themselves have a proprietary format that they collect that data in. So they typically will have a way to offload the point cloud data from the scanner, and then they'll need to export that to a file format that's supported by software programs like BricsCAD.
Okay.
So then once they've exported that into a file format that Bricsys can read, then we can import that into BricsCAD and start doing our manipulation and modeling and taking that point cloud and turning it into floor plans and 3D models and things like that. Once we've got the model, we can then continue to add LOD and BIM data.
Okay. All right, so that's a good overview. I think that works. So let's bring Rocco up. He's over there sleeping again. So Rocco, from our client side, is this scan to BIM process? Is this something that you find people actively pursuing? Do we get a lot of requests around this type of technology?
We don't get a lot of requests around it, but it's kind of it's one of those things where it's becoming a hot topic. A lot of people are following what's going on, how it's trending, where it's going. So I think it's certainly developing, and it's an area that we'll probably see ourselves getting into here more and more.
Right. Okay. That's a good answer. I like that one. So, one thing that I've noted in previous podcasts, right, when we've discussed, scanning and point clouds, et cetera, is that there are a lot of different, types and makes and models of scanners with, different resolutions, different levels of accuracy, different interfaces, and so on. And some of them are meant for scanning, small objects, like a valve or a mechanical part. While others are as big as like rail-mounted scanners for doing like miles of exterior sites. Yeah, and that's really a very wide spread of possible equipment, that people have to choose from there. So what do you think, Julie? I mean, what types of scanners should folks be using for different types of work, like architectural retrofit versus site work?
You're right. There are very many different types of scanners in different sizes, and the good thing is, again, they keep getting smaller. So that's good, but it really depends on what you're scanning and what you're going to use that point cloud data for. So you really have to understand what your end product is before you choose the scanner that you're going to use or hire someone to do that scan. And also the important thing here is to make sure that that scanner can output that point cloud data to a file format that your software is going to be able to read, as we kind of talked about earlier.
That would definitely be helpful, right? Scan it and then not be able to use it kind of limits your possibilities moving forward.
Right. So this is definitely something that you have to think about the end before you even get started. So BricsCAD supports various types of input files, LAS, PTX, PTS. RCS, RCP, and with version 21, we now support E57, which is really becoming a popular format.
Okay.
And because BricsCAD is part of Hexagon, Leica is also under the Hexagon umbrella. So my thoughts are to check out the Leica scanners. They have all kinds of scanners, probably one to do whatever you're probably looking to do.
Yeah, no doubt. Leica is definitely one of the leaders in that industry. So, so one thing that I have definitely noted on the scanning side of this process is that hardware is not cheap. All right, so I mean, Rocco and I actually looked into this about a year ago, for doing it ourselves, right? And the investment in these scanners was a bit daunting in terms of how much you had to lay out up front, right? When like at the time we didn't necessarily have locked in work for it, so there's that kind of that do we have enough to make this worthwhile? And it was a little we didn't go with it because there was a little bit too much risk for us at the time, right? And I have to imagine that the price up front scares off a lot of other people as well. So in terms of price and so on, what do you think? Is it better for companies to look at investing in these scanners for themselves, or do you think it's better to engage with a dedicated scanning firm who can handle it?
Probably for most, it would be better to engage with a scanning firm because it's not just the cost of buying a scanner. It's a whole nother skill set, right? Understanding where to set the scanner to take the point clouds. Do you need intermediate snapshots if you want to get some other graphics in there? So unless it's the company that's going to be doing this on a regular basis and having a dedicated team or at least one person that's going to become that in-house expert, I would think it's best to hire that out and leave that to a scanning professional firm that's what they do day in and day out.
Yeah, I think that's a smart answer, right? Like you said, unless you've got the workload that's going to make it worthwhile for you to have a full-time person doing nothing but that scanning, probably best to keep it with the professionals and just pay a little bit of a premium fee for when you need it. So that makes sense to me.
Because any technically challenging skill set, if you don't use it, you're going to forget it. And if you do it once a year, or even once every couple of months, there's just the learning curve, I think, is too high.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, cool. Good answer. So, all right, so we're going to take a quick break to hear from today's sponsor, and then we will be back with Julie, right, to talk more about the practical applications of the scan to BIM process and how we actually make that happen. So stick around, folks. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the CAD on Call podcast. All right, everybody, today's CAD on Call was brought to you courtesy of Zentech Consultants. That's Rocco and I. Zentech Consultants works with design and manufacturing firms to help our clients purchase and implement the software that they need in these complex industries. We provide a single point of contact for clients to buy, develop, and learn the most vital software systems for your specific needs. Zentech strives to be your trusted technology partner from your initial needs all the way through long-term support and training for your entire staff. So Rocco, why don't you tell them how to reach out to Zentech?
All right, yeah, you can reach out to us through zentechconsultants.net. You can email us at sales@zentechconsultants.net, or you can even call us, 866-824-4459.
Excellent. We look forward to hearing from y'all. All right, everybody, welcome back to the CAD on Call podcast. And today we're talking with Julie Keverian from Bricsys about the scan to BIM process and how it works. And in this half of the podcast, I want to get into some of the actual work involved in making this all happen. All right, so let's start with the post data collection steps then, and see if we can wrap our heads around this process. So Julie, once that folks have gone out and they've collected the point data, right? How do they actually work with it and convert and import it rather into a system like BricsCAD for real world use?
Well, that's the beauty of BricsCAD, because if the scan was done or once it's been exported to one of our supported file formats, then you just attach the point cloud right in BricsCAD, and that triggers a pre-processing procedure that runs in the background of your BricsCAD session, and it uses multiple cores of your workstation. So while that's processing, you can do other things. Okay. So you're not just locked up having that process going on. And then once it's processed, you can move through those big point clouds in real time. And once you've done that process and attached once, the pre-processed point cloud is stored in a cache. So you don't have to process it again. You'll just reference that point cloud into any other files, and it comes in just like a regular drawing. And then once you've attached it, you'll probably want to clip around the area that you really want to concentrate in, and then probably crop that area that you want to work in as well. So when we pre-process and attach that point cloud, it creates view bubbles automatically. And by just double-clicking one of those view bubbles, that raises a detailed spherical image that is basically seen from the original point of that particular scan.
Okay, so you can just go right to exactly where the scan was taken, and you've got the views already built. You don't have to manually place them.
Correct.
Nice. And I tell you what, the other thing I will say with that, I've had a little bit of experience with the laser scanning. Before I came here to Zentech, working with a design firm here, one of the early survey, big level Leica, laser scans, and man, the processing end of that, getting the clouds brought in, and again, this was 10 years or so ago when it was really first hitting, but we'd leave it run overnight. You know what I mean?
Right.
To bring in the dailies, we were doing like daily survey scans of a rail yard here in the New York, New Jersey area. And every night we get in a new data file and we just process it and go home. And hopefully it's done and no errors occurred overnight. So yeah, the way that BricsCAD processes that, it's a big difference. So
yeah, it's amazing.
All right. So getting that point cloud into your design system is really just the first step of the scan to BIM process, right? I mean, from there we're going to need to begin converting those points into some type of a solid model, right, for BIM use.
Right.
And I know that you can tie images to the point cloud, and some photogrammetry there, and make some really nice visualizations. But I don't think that that's going to meet our BIM criteria that we're really trying to achieve with this process, right? I mean, we're going to have to get to a 3D model with real BIM data somehow. So
right.
What's the fastest, most cost-effective way to kind of convert from the point cloud status, once we've got it into a system like BricsCAD, how do we convert that effectively to a 3D model that we can use for BIM and construction documentation?
So with release 21 of BricsCAD, we've added some really nice tools to work with point cloud data. For instance, BricsCAD will automatically detect lines within the point cloud data sets to automatically generate 2D layouts from 3D point clouds.
Really?
So that's a great and easy way to extract floor plans from scan data automatically.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know BricsCAD could do that. That's cool. I learned a new thing. Nice.
Now, those lines may not be perfectly straight, and and there may be some gaps. So the Optimize tool that we also introduced recently will help to automatically clean those up, make them straight, get rid of those gaps. And then from once you have that, we have a point cloud detect floors tool in the BIM product that automatically detects stories within the point cloud of a building. So that will automatically create a volume section for each of the detected floors. So we can do a couple of things. You can take that 2D layout and use, our tools to start to lay out your walls. We can also use the 3D bubble viewer, to create 3D geometry with the fit planar command within that, either the bubble view or just the point cloud itself, because that will detect, when you run that fit planar on the model itself, it will detect wall thicknesses, so it will start to create your slabs and your walls automatically. And then, of course, you can use the L-Connect or T-Connect tools to, again, kind of clean up what it automatically finds. So there's some really great improvements that we've made with working with point clouds and BricsCAD. It's faster. You can snap now to a point cloud closest point. We have an eSnap just for point clouds. So a lot of great tools that we've implemented. And two other points that I think are really important is speed. with the PTS and PTX files, those ASCII files, the speed is on average 5 times faster than BricsCAD version 20.
That's a big jump.
Yeah, it is. And also, in all of our different levels of BricsCAD, you have some ability to work with point clouds. Even in BricsCAD Lite, you can, if the point cloud's already been attached from Pro or from BIM, you can view that point cloud in BricsCAD Lite.
Wow.
And then in Pro, you have most of the attaching and processing tools. And then in BIM, that's where you're going to see the automatic floor detection and the plane fit planer and things like that. So all levels of our product, you can use point clouds.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, definitely some major strides being made there. So it's moving us towards, like I said, that the goal, that right, the one single process. So,
Right.
But I think that at least right now, I think that any way that you cut it, right, there's still some time and effort that has to go into this type of work, right?
Yes.
It's not just point and click and it's done, right? It's not that sort of thing, and I don't know that it will be anytime soon. There's got to, and I think one thing we need to consider here, right, is that there's got to be a genuine need if you're going to put in that kind of work. There's got to be a need and there's got to be a return on investment for companies who are going to put in the effort to make that process happen, right?
Yes.
And I don't think it's ever going to be a process that's used by every one of the listeners out there. But I can see that this is something that's absolutely vital, right? A day-to-day operational vital thing for a lot of firms out there. And it could, quite literally change the entire way that they work for the better, right? So Julie, what industries and what functions do you see as benefiting most from a good scan to BIM process?
So I'm most focused on AEC construction, but I think construction industry as a whole for both new projects and renovations, retrofits. I remember when I first started out in architecture, we were doing a renovation at a big laboratory, and we had to go in and do the field measurement of these offices.
I used to have that job too.
Oh my gosh, there are so many things we missed, right?
Yeah, and that was after weeks on site.
Yeah, exactly. Having to get out to the site, take all these measurements, based on a drawing of a floor plan that was 20 years old. So just getting those as-built, I think, is a huge, huge benefit because it's a lot faster than doing all that on-site and manual measuring. But also site conditions, right? Scan the site, see what's going on in the site. Again, especially if you have existing buildings nearby, you're in a city, you've got an infill project, something like that. But also, I think it can be used just to track construction progress every couple of weeks. If the scan is done, you can see how construction's coming along, and then compare that to the BIM model that was created before construction started to see how things match up.
Right, see what's missed, see what's going on. Tell you another area where I've actually seen it done in practical application, which was immensely invaluable to the contractor who was doing it, the GC. Again, you brought it to mind mentioning working in a tight urban area. We were working up in Manhattan, and we actually had to bring in a crane into a really, really tight space. And nobody was willing to guarantee that crane was going to fit down the alleyway and make the turn and get back out, and it couldn't cross the adjacent buildings. And we had actually went out, we did a laser scan of it, and we were able to prove that, yep, you had 8 inches, on each side of the thing. So, but it saved, right, by being able to bring that in instead of getting some other massive, way of doing it and helicoptering, rooftop units in. It saved them probably around, $150,000. So wow. It can have a major, major impact on your sites. So Rocco, how does Julie's summary kind of tie in with what you're seeing, like when you're having these conversations with clients? Did she miss anybody or any areas where you see people having a lot of interest in this scan to BIM process?
No, I think it's right in line. It's right in line with construction and on that site on the site end of things. You definitely see people asking and looking further into it.
Okay. All right. So, like I said before, right, I think, at the moment anyway, right, scan to BIM, it's not a one-click process, right? There's no easy button for it.
Right.
But that isn't to say that it won't be someday. And maybe, hopefully, on a day not too far away. I mean, like, let's face it, tech moves at lightning speeds, right? It's crazy. Right. I was part of the first generation to ever touch a PC, right? When I was in high school, and I was married and I had kids before I even heard of a smartphone, right? And look how fast all that changes, right? It's crazy. The market always demands better and faster and simpler solutions. And I think, the companies that provide them grow by leaps and bounds, right? So here's what I'm going to do for you all, folks. I'm going to see if we can get Julie to give us a view of the potential future here. Because like she said, right, she works for Bricsys, which is a division of Hexagon, who also owns Leica Geosystems, who is one of the leading, hardware and software manufacturers in this space. So, Julie, is there currently a single solution that can handle this entire process? And if not right now, is it something that Hexagon, Bricsys, Leica are working towards? What do we have to look forward to?
I think you'll definitely see some integration between Hexagon, Bricsys, and Leica. Absolutely. Today, there's not one package that you could say purchase that has everything you need, but I think Leica has enough scanners that will do the job, that will be able to export to the file formats that BricsCAD supports. So I think it's kind of there in a loose environment. But yes, I think there will be some tighter integration in the future.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think there's a huge potential here. So that's really the benefit, of having a big parent umbrella company like that you can tie all of these different techs into one really, end user friendly answer to big concerns like this. So awesome.
I just like the fact that Julie can see into the future.
Julie's cool, man. I'm telling you, I'm replacing you with her.
There's no timeline here.
We didn't say how far in the future.
My safe harbor statement, right?
All righty, folks. So, all right. So I think we can leave this topic here for today. And I want to thank Julie Keverian for being our guest once again. And Julie, I promise I'm going to do my best to keep Rocker from scaring you so much so that you agree to come back and talk to us.
Anytime.
Yeah, you can talk to us in the future about the future. It'll work out well. All right, Julie, thank you so much for being here. All righty, folks, we're going to get out of here, and we will catch you next time on the Cattle Call Podcast.